It all started on a regular Thursday afternoon, the kind of day you don't expect anything strange to happen. The sun was out. I had just finished tidying the living room, and my husband was away on a short business trip. Nothing out of the ordinary until I heard that noise from upstairs. At first, I brushed it off as maybe something falling or shifting, but then I heard it again, louder. It sounded like footsteps. My heart skipped a beat. Now, let me just say your son is usually the quiet, calm type. He's 11, polite, smart, and not the kind of kid to pull pranks or do anything too bold. That's why what happened next left me completely speechless. You'd think you know your own child, right? But that day, I realized there was a side of him I hadn't seen before. I called out his name, expecting a casual, "I'm fine, Mom," in response. But there was silence. No reply. Just the sound of quick footsteps and what honestly sounded like whispering. I froze for a second, confused and now a bit worried. I walked up the stairs slowly, unsure of what I was going to find. The door to his room was closed, locked. And then I heard something that sent a chill down my spine. He was talking to someone. Now, remember? We were alone in the house, just me and him. So who was he talking to? I knocked on the door, no answer. I asked again, louder this time, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sweetheart, open the door. Is everything okay?" Still nothing, just the sound of movement and that quiet voice again. Was he on the phone? But no, I had just taken his phone away last week because he stayed up late watching videos. So what was going on? I tried the handle again. Still locked. That's when I heard him say something that made my stomach turn. "Don't worry, she won't find out." His tone was so calm, almost too calm. I didn't recognize it. It didn't even sound like my son. I pressed my ear against the door, trying to hear more, but everything went quiet, completely silent. At this point, my mind was racing. Was he hiding something? Was someone else in the room? Was he scared? Or was he doing something he knew he wasn't supposed to? I didn't want to panic, but my instincts told me something wasn't right. I went downstairs to grab the spare key we keep hidden in the kitchen drawer. My hands were shaking. I unlocked the door slowly, not knowing what to expect. And when I finally opened that door, what I saw was something I never thought I'd witness in my own home. The moment the door creaked open, my breath caught in my throat. My son was sitting cross-legged on the floor, facing the wall. At first glance, he looked completely still too still. His room was unusually tidy, almost like he'd prepared it for something. But what really shook me was what was in front of him. There were pieces of paper spread out on the floor, drawings, symbols I didn't recognize, scribbled all over with black and red markers. In the center was his old toy recorderone we hadn't used in years. The little red light on it was blinking. He didn't move or look back at me when I stepped inside. It was like he didn't even know I was there. "Sweetheart, who were you talking to?" I asked, my voice quiet, trying not to startle him. He finally turned his head. His expression was blank, almost confused. "No one, Mom," he said calmly. "I was just playing." Just playing? I wanted to believe that. I really did. But something in his voice didn't feel right. I knelt beside him and looked at the papers more closely. The drawings were nothing like his usual doodles. They looked almost ritualistic, like something from a movie, but not one I'd ever let him watch. "Where did you learn to draw these?" I asked. He shrugged. "It was in the book." "What book?" He pointed under his bed. I hesitated before reaching down to pull it out. The cover was dark, worn, with no title, just more strange markings like the ones on the floor. I opened it, and the pages were filled with sketches, handwritten notes, and faded symbols that sent chills down my spine. It didn't look like anything a child should be reading. I asked him where he got it from, and his answer made me sit back. It was already here, in the attic. I found it last weekend. The attic. We hadn't been up there in years. It was mainly used for old boxes and dusty furniture. There's no way I or my husband ever saw that book before. So how did it get there? And why did he seem so drawn to it? I looked at my son again, trying to find a trace of the boy I knew, but something about that moment felt like I was looking at a stranger. Something deeper was going on, something I wasn't ready to face. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house felt louder. Every shadow seemed to stretch longer than it should. I kept replaying my son's voice in my mind, so calm, so distant. I couldn't shake the image of those drawings, or the way he said, "She won't find out." Who was he talking about? Or worse, who was he talking to? He talking to? The next morning, I decided to check the attic myself. I waited until he left for school and grabbed the flashlight. Dust danced in the beam as I climbed the creaky steps. The attic smelled of agewood, paper, and something else I couldn't place. I moved boxes, pushed aside old blankets, but I couldn't find anything unusual. No signs of a book, no hidden compartments. But just as I was about to give up, I noticed one of the wooden floorboards was loose near the far corner. I pried it up, expecting to find maybe an old photo album or forgotten toys. Instead, there was a small wooden box. I hesitated before opening it. Inside were more papers, old ones, yellowed with time, and tucked between them a photo blurry black and white of a woman standing near what looked like our staircase. Something about her expression made me shiver. Her eyes looked almost too real, like she was still watching. I brought the photo down and tried to ask my husband about it over the phone, but his reaction was odd. He went quiet. Then he said, "I'll explain everything when I get home. Just don't mention it to our son." What did he mean by that? What was there to explain? Why would my husband already know something about this? And why did it feel like whatever was happening had started long before I even noticed? By the time evening rolled around, the house felt colder than usual. Not in temperature, but in energy. My son was quiet at dinner, barely touching his food. He kept glancing over his shoulder like he was waiting for something or someone. I wanted to ask him about the woman in the photo, but my husband's words echoed in my mind. "Don't mention it to our son." That warning kept me still. After he went to bed, I stayed up alone in the living room, staring at that photo. The woman's face seemed familiar, like I had seen her before but couldn't place where. I turned it over. Faint handwriting on the back read, "She never left." I felt a chill run down my spine. Who was she? And why was her photo hidden in our attic? I thought about calling my husband again, but he hadn't responded to any of my messages since earlier. He was supposed to come back tonight, but now he was hours late and I was starting to worry. That's when I heard it again, footsteps upstairs. Slow, deliberate. I rushed up to my son's room, heart pounding. His light was off, but the door was cracked open. Inside, I found him sitting up in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the corner of his room. I flipped on the light. "What is it?" I whispered. He didn't even blink. "She's here," he said. I turned toward the corner. Nothing was there. "Who, baby? Who's here?" He slowly pointed. "The lady from the book. She came out of the wall." I backed away, grabbing him into my arms. He was ice cold. I looked again, and for just a split second, I swear I saw a shadow move on its own. And still, my husband wasn't home. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept my son in bed with me, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw that shadow. I told myself it was my imagination, just stress, exhaustion, maybe even guilt for not noticing all of this sooner. But deep down, I knew something real was happening, something I couldn't explain. The next morning, I finally heard from my husband. He texted simply, Don't leave the house. Whatever you do, don't go near the attic again. I'll be there in an hour." That was it. No explanations. No reassurance. Just a warning that only made things worse. I was pacing the living room, waiting for him to arrive, when my son came downstairs holding the book. "She wants you to read it," he said softly. I nearly dropped the glass in my hand. "What? Who wants me to read it?" "The lady," he said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "She said you need to understand." I grabbed the book and shoved it back in the kitchen drawer, locking it inside. "We're not reading this. Do you hear me? This isn't a game." But he just looked at me, calm again, too calm, and said, "It's not a game for her either." I stood there frozen, unsure of what to do, and that's when there was a knock on the door. But it wasn't my husband. Standing on the porch was a woman with deep lines in her face, wearing a scarf over her head. She looked like she had walked a long way. She didn't smile. She didn't even blink. "You live in the cursed house," she said plainly. "She won't stop until the story is complete." I didn't know how to respond. "What story?" She looked past me, toward the hallway. "The one your son is writing, the one she started long before you moved in." My skin went cold. I turned around slowly, heart racing. My son was standing at the end of the hall, notebook in hand, watching us. And then I noticed something I hadn't before. Every drawing in his notebook was coming true. The moment I realized the drawings were predicting real events, everything shifted. I snatched the notebook from my son's hands and flipped through it, my heart pounding. There were pages that showed our house, the attic, the photo, even the old woman on the porch. But the last drawing was the one that made my knees go weak. It showed a shadowy figure standing behind me and my husband lying motionless on the floor. I dropped the book. Just then, the front door burst open. My husband stood there, breathless, his face pale and soaked from the rain. "We need to leave." "Now," he said, eyes locked on the notebook at my feet. "I should have told you the moment we moved in." "You think?" I snapped, panic making my voice sharp. "What is this? What is happening to our son?" He glanced at the old woman, who hadn't moved. "She's not just a stranger. She lived here once. She lost her child in this house years ago. Everyone said she went mad, but she believed the house took him. After she died, no one wanted to live here. I thought it was just stories. But when I found that book in the attic a month ago, I knew." "You knew and you said nothing?" My voice cracked. "He's been drawing things before they happen. He talks to someone we can't see. He says she lives in the wall." The old woman finally spoke again. "She does, and now she wants him." My husband turned to my son. "Did you draw anything today?" he asked. Our son nodded slowly. "Yes, I finished the last page." I grabbed the notebook again and flipped to the end. There it was, a sketch of our family standing in the front yard, but our house, it was on fire. And then we all heard it, a faint crackling, the unmistakable smell of smoke. We ran into the kitchen. The drawer, the one where I had locked the book earlier, was engulfed in flames. But nothing else was burning, just that drawer, like something was erasing its own trail. We put the fire out quickly. No damage spread, but as the smoke cleared, something strange happened. My son blinked, looked around, and for the first time in days said, "Mom, why are we all in the kitchen?" He didn't remember anything. We thought it was over. But that night, I found one more drawing tucked under his pillow. And it wasn't one he had made. That night, after putting my son to bed, I sat alone in the living room, the mysterious drawing still in my hands. It was unlike any of his previous sketches, more detailed, almost lifelike. The image depicted our family standing outside the house, smiling, with the old woman from the porch standing behind us, her face serene. But what caught my eye was the background. The house was gone, replaced by a lush garden bathed in sunlight. I couldn't shake the feeling that this drawing was a message, a glimpse into a possible future. The next morning, I decided to confront the old woman. I found her sitting on the porch, as if she'd been waiting for me. "Who are you?" I asked. She looked up, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and hope. "I'm the memory of what was lost," she said. "Your son has a gift, a connection to the unseen. The house feeds on unresolved stories, and your family's presence awakened them." She handed me a small, ornate box. "Inside is the key to ending this cycle, but it requires a choice." Opening the box, I found a single old photograph of a young boy, the same boy from the previous drawings. On the back, a note read, "Set us free." Realizing what needed to be done, I gathered all the drawings, the book, and the photograph. That evening, as the sun set, our family stood together in the backyard. We created a small fire and, one by one, placed each item into the flames. As the last page burned, a gentle breeze swept through, carrying away the ashes. The house seemed to sigh, its walls relaxing, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. Our son looked up at us, his eyes clear. "It's quiet now," he whispered. In the days that followed, the house felt different, lighter, warmer. The drawings ceased, and our son returned to his cheerful self. Life resumed its normal rhythm, the haunting memories fading like a distant dream. But sometimes, late at night, I glance at the spot where the old woman once sat, and I wonder, was she ever really there? Or was she just another story waiting to be told?